This is Gemara Sanhedrin Daf Ayin, and we're holding in the bottom of Samach Tesamid Beis, approximately 12 lines from the bottom. The first one line is Lihu, and all the learning once again should be an incredible schos Rafua Shlema for Tinok ben Miriam Ahuva. We should continue seeing Baruch Hashem Refuah's advances, ultimately culminating in Rafua Shlema Gemura B'Karayv Mamish. We're holding on the bottom of Samach Tesamid Beis, Amar Rav Kahana. We should have done this last slide, and I apologize in the previous year, as this is a complete connection to the previous sugya, proving that shame in the previous discussion, even though he was listed in the psukim first, however, he's not the oldest. Says the Gemara, Rav Kahana, Amrit l'shvente kameid Rav Zim min Ardoi, and Amar Li, he responded, Atun me'acham asnitan v'Rav me'acham asnitan Allah. You brought a raya from there, and I bring a raya from here. Says the pasuk, l'shem yulad gamhu, avigo b'nei Ever achi yefes agadol. Says the pasuk, Shem was born. He was the ancestor. All those lived on the other side of the river, the brother of Yefes. Says the Gemara, Yefes agadol shavach of Hava. Yefes was the oldest in that Shem. Says the Gemara. So now we're back to original raya. Ela minolan. We're trying to bring a proof that an 8-year-old boy was able, I should say, to have children bisman chazal. Ela minolan mehacha. Says the pasuk u'betzal ben Uri ben Chur lemate Yehuda uksev. And the pasuk says, "V'atamas azuba ishes kelev kolev as Efrat v'atil lo yes Chor," and she gave birth to Chor. Asked the Gemara, Mishkan Bar Kama Have was Eved? Nope. Excuse me. When Betzal built the Mishkan Bar Kama Have, how old was Betzal? Of course, Bar Tleisar. He was 13. The Chsev of the pasuk says, "Ishish b'mlachta she'imais v'tanya," and we learned in our brisa, Shanari Shaina, the first year, Asa Maisha Mishkan, Shniya Hekim Mishkan, the second year, he erected, he set it up, Shalach Miraglim, and sent out the Miraglim. Betzal's now a year later, 14. Uksiv, but Arbaim Shana, says the pasuk, when Kalev was 40, Anochi B'Shalach Moshe Eved Hashem, the guy, I was 40 when Moshe sent Vata, and now I'm 85. So Kalev was remarking that when Moshe sent him out, he was 40. Now he's 85. Says the Gemara, so how old was Kalev at the Shas? The moment he was sent out to be the Meraglin, Arbaim, he was 40. Dalar Beisar David B'Tzalel. So of the 40, let's subtract the 14 years of when Kalev was sent. Bashlu Asavishis. So we're left with 26. So Kalev was 26 when B'Tzalel, his grandson, was born. Dal Tartishti Ditlasa Ibara. So subtract 2 years for 3 pregnancies, 9 months apiece. What do we see? We see that from Kalev to Betzalel, if there's 3 generations, it must be 8, 16, 24, proving that Bisman Chazal, indeed, they were able to have children at this much younger age of 8. Continues the Gemara, Ben v'lo bas, quoting the Mishnah that a son could be a Ben Sarah Meir and not a daughter. Tanya, we learned in a Brisa, Rav Shimon teaches the Brisa within who? Really, the din is that a bas, a daughter, should be able to be like a kid, similar to, and have the same chi of misa as a Ben Sarah Umayr. But says the Gemara, Sha'akol Mitsuyin Etzla Bavera. Why? Because anyone will want to have sins with her. Meaning it is a shaykh, it's a possibility in Mitzias that she could be such a level of Rishanta, as the top Rashi points out, that what? Zaylullah. V'saiva b'katinusa saifa k'shleitimsa limuda imedins versus drachim. She's going to be sitting at the crossroads, Markel Sabrias Laveira, Bishul Esnan, and she's going to have the terrible Aveiris. But says the Gemara, the reason why not, Xeris Akasav of Ben Veloy Bas. Continues with the Mishnah on the top of Ayin and Aleph. Says the Mishnah, Me'ema say chayif. At what point is this wayward child obligated chayiv misa as a ben Meir? Says the Mishnah, Mishayochal tartemar basar. He eats a tartemar of meat. Vishtachati lo yayin apple of wine. Hayitalki Italian wine. Rabbi Yisrael Meir. Mana basar lo yayin. It's a mana of meat and a lug of wine. Says the Mishnah, aval bechaburas mitzvah. However, if he ate at a mitzvah, a sudas mitzvah, not aval, ochal bechaburas mitzvah. Ochal, or he ate the bigger chaydesh, which is the suda, when they made a leap month. Ochal meiser sheni b'Yushalayim. Ochal nevil sutris v'shkatzer masim. Or he ate something not kosher. Ochal tavel meiser risha shlanitul shumasim meiser sheni v'ektish shlанiftu. Ochal darishu mitzvah. He ate a mitzvah. Darishu avera. He ate something that has elements of mitzvah and avera. Ochal v'meichav loy ochal basar. Didn't have meat. Shasa kol mashka v'loy shasa yayin. Einay nasa ben sarmar. So very unique halacha the Mishnah is teaching us. These forms of eating do not deem him to be a ben sarmar. Until sheyochal basar v'yishta yayin is to eat meat and wine, particularly shnev zol v'savei afal b'isha ein raya l'davar zeich l'davar shenamar. Says the basal tib v'savei yam v'zolei basar lamai. Says the pasuk, don't be about amongst those that are seviv yayin, they guzzle wine, bizolei basar, and glutinous eatings of meat. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Zvid. What is a tartemar of basar? Says Rav Zvid, but rather, shekafel Rav Yossi and Rav Yossi double the amount of wine used by the Tanakama, and if shekafel of the basar must be double the meat. Venimsa, and then what are you going to get? That's how you can figure out what tartemar is. Chatzi mana, half of a mana. If he doubled it to be a mana, so it has to be half of that. Amar Rav Chanan bar Mulda. Amar Rav Huna inay chayiv ad sheikach basar bezol v'yechel yayin bezol. V'yochal, he has to take meat that was cheap and eat it. Yayin bezol, wine that is cheap. That's the meaning of the pasuk that says Zoylel v'soiveya. Another requirement. Add on the 6y line shechabas chav yishta yayin chai, undiluted and raw meat. Eini I Rabbi Yosef Rabbi and Raisi, excuse me. Explain both of them. Shechabas chav yishta yayin chai. Says the Gemara. Excuse me. 1 second. I skipped over here. Amar Rav Eini v'Rav Yudam Zevei Chavos Chav Yishasi Yain Chai Einoi Nasa Ben Sarah Meir. Says the Gemara. Eini. Okay, 1 second. We're having a highlighting issue. Excuse me. Rav Yosef Zevei Chavos Yishasi Yain Chai Einoi Nasa Ben Sarah Meir. Amar Ravina explains Ravina Yain Chai Mazik V'Loi Mazik. What does that mean? That means diluted, but not fully diluted. Basar chai is bashel v'loy bashel. It means it's raw, it's partially cooked. Kibasar kiba da'achli gan via scorched meat that the thieves eat. This is, of course, brings us back to Meichel ben Drusai, the term that we have in Mesachas Shabbos, which is cooked but partially cooked, which is what the robbers would eat on the road. Rabba v'Rav Yosef dami tarvayo achol basar maleach v'shasi yain migitay. If someone eats meat that is salted in wine from the press, ino nasa ben sarmar. Tanan asam. Erev tisha b'av lo yechal adam shein tavshilin. One should have 2 cooked dishes. Lo yechal basar v'lishta yain. V'tana, we learned in a brayso. Achal eichalu basar. Aval whoever eichalu basar maliach. Salted meat v'shasi yain migitay basar maliach ad kama. How much? Amar Chanina bar Kana goes manshu kishlamim. How much? As much as the shlamim, which is as long as it's it's similar to the amount that one would eat as a carbon, then it's not a problem. Yain migitay ad kama l'kol zman shu taises. As long as it is fermenting, you could drink it. Ay v'hatanya. Ve'atanya, and we learned to the Brayse. Yain toises in b'misham giloi, doesn't have a lach of giloi, which is not allowed to keep uncovered liquids open bisman chazal, that we're afraid that the snakes will eat it. But kamar tarsisoi, and how to see and how much is the fermentation? Shleisha yamim. Hachamai. So that's the halachas with regard to Erev Tisha B'Av. But Hach over here by Ben Tzaramayra, what are the Gedarim? Explains the Gemara. Hasa Misham Simcha by Erev Tisha B'Av Din Simcha calls Man Shukish Shlamim. Nami Yisba Simcha Hach Misham Imshuchi. Over here it's a different Nikuda. Over here by Ben Tzaramayra worried that it's going to pull him in, it's going to cause him to want to eat more. Ubacholshu. And when it comes to a little bit, loy mimshach, that little bit does not draw him in. V'yayin ad arbayim yaim until 40 days. Says the Gemara, Mavchan lo niver yayin ba'ilam elo lenachem alvelim ulishalem sachar l'rishayim. Says the Gemara that wine has this incredible duality that on one hand, there are, of course, are positive aspects of nichem avelim, calms one, comforts them, but on the other hand, it can be reward for the wicked. Shnemer to nushechel oived liyayin lamari nefesh. Amar Revitzig Ma'idich Sev. What is the meaning of the pasuk? Alter yayin ki yit adem. Says the pasuk, do not look upon wine that is red. Alter yayin shema adin b'neim shel rishayim. Do not look on wine. It reddens the face of the rishayim b'elamazem v'lam b'neim, and it makes them embarrassed. Le'olam haba ravam alter yayin ki yit adem. Do not look upon wine that is red. Don't look at wine. That end will be blood. It will lead to the drinker's death when he overindulges in such wine. Rav Kahana asked us Tiraksiv. Tirash says Tirash with no vav, v'karin on Tirosh. Zocha naseroish, lo zocha naserash. Wine has both entities. It can make one into a roish if he drinks it responsibly or moderately. Loizach overindulging naseh rash, it can make him poor. Rava says, Ksev Yismach v'Karinan Yismach. The pasuk says Yismach with a shin, but it can be read Yisamach. Zocha misamcha loisocha mishamimoy. If he's not zoicha, it could destroy him. I know the Marava. We're about 15 lines to the bottom. The first one is the Amar Rava Chama v'Rechana. Says Rava Pachen, scents and wines have made me wise. Amar Rav Amar Breder Rav Shimon Bar Abba. Amar Rav Chanina Ma'idich Sev. Lemi avoi. Says the pasuk, Lemi midyanim, Lemi siach, Lemi pitzaim. Chinam lemitach lisoinayim lemacharim alayayin laboyim lachkar mimsoch. Says the pasuk, what does this mean? Kasser avdimi amar rava haikra man de darishvei meiresha de seifa midrash. We say for the reisha midrash we can either darsh it forwards or backwards. Darish over Galila. The over Galila learn Shalosh Esrei Yod Gimel Vavin in Emor B'Yayin. There were 13 vavs that were said by Yayin. Vayachal Noyach Ish Adam Avayita Kerem. And he planted a vineyard. V'yeshtim in a Yayin. He drank. Vayishkar, and he got drunk. Vayit Gal. And he overcovered himself. V'seichal in his tent. Vayore Cham Avikinan, and Cham sees. Servas Aviv Vayagil Shtei Alcha Vachot Vayikach Sham Vayavas is a simla, and they cover him up with the garment Visima Al Shechem Shneihem Vayelchu Achayranis, and they walked backwards. Vayechasu as Servas Aviv, and they covered up their five Paneim Vaykomer Vayikatz Noach Enoch woke up Miyena Vayedas Asher Salai. Benoyah caught and he know what his younger son did to him. Then he said, Arar Kanan. So what do we see? All these different vavs, all the vav, these are teaching us this wine can be the source of terrible evils. Ravu Shmuel Chad Amar, we're 10 lines to the bottom. The first line is Amar Sersoi. That Cham, what did he do wrong? He castrated Noyav, Chadam Revavai. He sodomized him. And Amar Sersoi, Midach Shekiloi Beravi. Since Chamru Noach, by castrating him, why he can't have another child? Noach never cursed his fourth son, Kinan. Oman Damar, that no Ravai, that he had relations. Gamar Vayar Vayar Ksivach Vayar Cham Avikinan. Servas Aviv Ksivasam Vayar Oisam Shechem Ben Chamar Vaygomer. So based on Mandamar Sarah, so it says, according to Mandamar, it says he castrated his father, he got the fourth curse. fourth generation of Canaan. Why Davka the fourth? He should give him a curse specifically to him. Says Gemara, it was a curse both. Says Gemara, according to that Shita, he did both, Ravai and Sarsai both sodomized him and castrated him. He did both to his father. Says the Gemara, let's go a little bit deeper into the story with Noach. Vayachel Noach ish Adam, or 4 lines from the bottom. Noach ish Adam was machal, he debased himself, he took care of him, he planted a vineyard. Amar Chiz, Amar Rav Ukva, Amar Lo, Amar Ukva, Amar Rav Zaki. Amar Leah, Kadosh Baruch Hu, Le Noach. Noach. Did he not learn from other Rishon? What caused the whole issue was wine. Says the Gemara, Command Amar Isai Ilan Shachamenu Adam Rishon Geffen Haya. This is going to the opinion that says what? What was the sin at the Eitz Das? It was from Geffen grapes. The Tanya we learned to the race. Rabbi Meir, what was it? Says Rabbi Meir, it was grapes. It was an intoxicating beverage, and that caused Noach to say, Adam Rishon to sin. And there's nothing that brings yilala. There's nothing that brings sorrow and wailing more than wine. Rabbi Yehuda, Aimer, second line in Ayin, it was wheat. Dagan, Rav Nachman Yomar, third shot. Teina, was a date of our Kilasai by Nitkanu, and they saw you fix Shem Yitbru Ale Teina. And the Ale Teina were put together. So we see incredibly that no one says it was an apple of all these shitais. Says the Gemara, let's go back to the psukim that we quoted in Amud Aleph, which were psukim that were dealing with drinking a lot of wine and the evils that come with it. Says the Gemara, Divrei, 7 lines down, Aim Limoel Melech Masa Sheyisarta Imai. Says the pasuk, the words of Limuel was a Navi, which his mother gave him Musar. What does this pasuk teach us? This teaches that Shlima HaMelech's mother bound him up to a amud, to a post, as if she was going to give him malchus from her loy. And she said, Ma biri ma bar bitni, Omar bar nidri. What am my son, my womb, my vow? Ma biri, what do she mean? She call Yoidim Shavicha Yari Shemayim Avoy. Everyone knows your father was Yari Shemayim. Achshav Yemru Ima Garmela. They're going to say that me, your mother, caused you to do the sin. Over here, David and Bathsheba. Umar Babit, Nikol Anashal Beis Avicha, Kim Shem Zaber, Shav Einai, Raya, Ispenei Melech. What does that mean? All the other women would no longer see the king once they conceived. They were not together with David and Melech. Vani and I, Dachakti V'nechlasi K'dei Shili Ben, Mezuraz Umaluban. I would continue having relations even once I was pregnant with David and Melech. Why? So that the child should be a gishmaka child, should be healthy. So how can you tell me? Says the pasuk that you're going to use these pleasures for the vanities of the world. Omar bar nidri. What does it mean? Oh, woe, my son of the neder. Kol nashim shel beis avicha yinaydres. All those who had relations with your father David HaMelech made a neder. Yeli ben hagil malchus. On the last narrow line, they wanted a child that is fit for a kingdom. And I took him a nether, saying, Yeheli Ben. You know what type of child they want? Not Tafka, someone who could be a king. Ben Zares, Mumula Ba'atayra, V'hagin L'Nevi'is. So we see, just a parenthetical point, we see that the Spitz, the highest level tefillah, is not for the kid to mamish be. It's for the kid to be a Ben Taira. Continues the Gemara, Elam Lachem L'moyel, Elam Lachem Shisu Yayin. Not to the kings who are Lemuel, not to the kings who are drunk with wine. Al Amrulai Malacha Itzav Lachem. Amrulai Malacha Itzav Lachem Shaz Yayin Mishtakrim, Amrum, they said Lama. And they respond, why do we need a kel? Why do we need a god? For the rulers, what is the point of drinking? Call me. Misha called Razi Eilim Gluyim Lai, those that all the secrets of the world are revealed to him. All the secrets of the world would come early to such a person. Amar Rav Yitzchak, Minay Shachazar Shlomo V'Haida L'Imay. How do we know Shlomo Melech was Chayzer and he was made on what he did wrong? This Chev Ki Bayr Hanaychi Me'ish V'Loi Binas Adam Li. Says the pasuk, I'm more foolish than a man. I have not understanding of man. Ki Bayr Hanaychi Me'ish Minoyach Dirse V'Yachal Noyach Ish Adama V'Labinas Adam Li Zeh Adam HaRishon. Continues the Gemara. Ochal b'chaburas mitzvah. So the Mishnah taught a bunch of cases that we cannot consider them to create a ben Saira Moira. Why? Because she's considered to eat, because the form of eating, he is in a chabura mitzvah. That was case number one. It was in a matzav of a mitzvah. Says Gemara Ravoy, in a chayv she'elcha b'chabur she'cholin tzrikin. You're only chayiv if he eats in a group of people that's tzrikin, people that just do nothing. Time of the mitzvah. Which way is the burden of proof? It sounds like it's only because they do mitzvahs. Halav mitzvah. Avagav kula tzrikin. They're mamish pashin doing nothing. So they would sound like would be as ben Sarah. Answers the Gemara, Kamash Mallah, and the Afal Gad, the Kulis Reek, and keep the mitzvah Ka'asik Loy Mimshach. Says the Gemara, no, the other way it's a Chiddush. That even if the people are Mamish Sreek and people that do nothing, but since Kivan the mitzvah Ka'asik, these people punked right now, the kid who's doing become the Ben Sarah Meir is involved in the mitzvah he's eating, then Loy Mimshach, he will not be drawn. So we're saying a Kula, he's hanging out with a bunch of bums. But he punked is in the middle of doing a mitzvah, says the Gemara, then he himself won't become Ben Sarah Meir because he's not going to be drawn after his food and drink at that level. Ochal be'ibra chaydesh, and that was the next case in the Mishnah, says the Gemara, middle of the wide lines. To that, says the Gemara, Lememer the basar v'yayin maskai. Is this to say that meat and wine were brought up lemaskai to the attic? Where they're doing, we know that they got together to be ma'aber the chaydesh, as we learned earlier in the Masechta. So do they have a whole party over there? There's no meat and wine. What do they have by the chaydesh? They had bread, and they had kidneys, they had beans. And this kid, and he brought his own pekel with wine and meat, and he eats it over there with those dayanim. Even the mitzvah, involved in a mitzvah, he will not be mamshech, he will not be drawn after the meat and wine. They don't bring up less than 10 people. And they only go up on the evening following the day that they're going to make into the leap month. He told his son, Achrifu, go up early, go up to eat early while it's still there, even though the meal is really at night, and leave early, so people hear about you being there. So what do we see? We see you have to actually go up during the day, but the meal that they ate was at nighttime. Next case, Achal Meiser Sheni b'Yerushalayim, says the Gemara, since it's regular kachal loy mamshich. Says the Gemara, since he's eating it the normal way, the way the Torah prescribes, therefore we're not worried that it could create a matzah ben Sarah Meir. Achal Navel Zu Trevish Katzer Matzah, says the Gemara, Amar Rav, Achal Basar Oif, Ein Nasa ben Sarah Meir. If he eats chicken, he's not a ben Sarah Meir. It sounds like anything that's kosher. What do the Mishnah mean to complete that measure? But our Mishnah agrees that if you eat an entire tamer of kosher chicken, you would not become ben Sarah, which of course brings out what a ben Sarah was, that it's davka kosher food. We conclude, Achal Davar Shu Mitzvah V'Davar Aveira, Davar Mitzvah Tadchu Be'avelim, Davar Aveira is Tainis Sibur, V'Taim Amai, Amar Kra, and Enu Shameh B'Kol Kolenu V'Lishkol Shel Makim. What's the reason over here? Because it must be he doesn't listen to our voice, and not that he don't listen to Hashem. If he ate on forbidden foods, or ate at a time he wasn't allowed to eat, then that itself is not that he don't listen to his parents. It's that he don't listen to the Torah, and then that would not create a Ben Sarah Mar. It's a little bit counterintuitive, but again, the Nakuda is, everything's kosher, everything's good, and then he goes and eats these things. That's what could create the Metzara Meir. Pick it up from here, B'siyata Dishmaya.